All right. All right. Well, shalom and blessings to each and every one of you who might come along here and spend a few minutes with us. What an amazing, amazing time this is in the cosmos, if you would, in the cosmic beauty and wisdom and understanding that is available to those who are available to it. It is absolutely quite overwhelming, the beauty of all that's going on. Are there things in that have to be dealt with that may not always be so pleasurable? And indeed there is. But as I go on my journey, just observations to a large extent, but I think that they are very valid observations. And I've observed that the universe seems to have a way of functioning that very much is dependent on the pressure that is put on humans to come to a place of growth, or at least an opportunity for them to make a decision to grow. Doesn't mean that they will carry out, but there is this place where we are brought. And if you are one of the ones who has a desire to break out of the prison, which is what a part of the journey is all about, and if you understand that the archonic powers are functioning in ways that your human mind could never even conceive, much less understand, then you would begin to recognize that there is infinitely more to all of this than what we have been taught. And so as we go along in this journey, I at this level have already discovered at least what I call 4 separate pictures of spiritual reality that may be that for some. But I'm not interested in that concept. I'm interested inevitably in what is the truth that will bring me out of the archonic prison and bring me into the enlightened journey. And so a couple things I wanted to share tonight, and I hope that maybe it'll help you. Maybe there's some things you've known about, maybe there's some things you've never thought about. And I think if you haven't, then certainly you will be blessed if you will just value just a little bit of time. I know everybody's smarter than whoever's talking to them, but the reality is that the universe is even in light of the falseness and the corruption, is trying to expose truth to humanity. And so Yeshua was very correct when he told us that everything exists inside of us and that must be the journey. He didn't choose to leave us instructions of how to accomplish that, not at the greater level. We have teachings, and I've tried to share all of those with people, whether it be the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, which just totally, for me, flipped the world upside down and has changed many, many pictures that I have, false paradigms that were created by Christianity, created by families that like to tell us some things that are maybe less than honorable. And so tonight I want to share a couple of pieces. It's kind of like 2 separate little things, but I want to put them together. I just felt like it might help people. It's cold, things are going good, and yet many people, even as I do, are feeling unrest. They're feeling chaos in the air. It's hidden. You can't see it. You can't put your finger on it. You don't know exactly what it is, but you recognize intuitively. And we're going to talk some towards the end about that statement right there. And so the first thing that I wanted to do first off, though, is would be to get everybody, whether you know her or not is irrelevant, but I have a very long time, very faithful friend of mine, and I do believe that we're headed towards the supernatural functioning. We already have forms of sound healing, we have forms of light healing, and I believe that those things are going to increase little by little. Do I say everybody will be involved? No, I don't. Do I believe that everybody will be involved? No, I don't. But I do believe that there are people that are interested in benefiting and blessing humanity, and what an amazing way to be able to do it. Self-centered people will never understand the whole concept of this, for the most part. They only see one perspective, and that's self, and we're going to find out about that person here in just a minute. And so we have this. We titled tonight's little speak the three U's. I would say the three U's, the three minds. And so to that end, I'd like for us to use a piece of the first mind, if you don't mind. And I would like everybody that will to just simply close your eyes, set an intention, and here's the intention. We are going to send energy to every sick person that you have consciousness of. Now, my intention is towards Sister Frances and many that have been with me, some for up to 30 years. They will probably set that intentions, but I don't want to limit just simply to that. We are more powerful than we understand. And Sister Frances has been with us for a long time, and she's been through many, many, many changes, and she's experiencing some health that's less than ideal. And I believe that we have the power, even from long distances, to send healing and restoration. And so for all of you that'll join with me, this is a new concept of prayer, because it has nothing to do with anything that you say. It has to do with who you are inside. And so some will think that in their mind and sin, and some will think in their heart and they will sin. The beauty of this exercise is nobody knows, and as long as the love is sent, nobody cares who sent what. So ego, mind number 2, is taken out of the picture. And so if you'll just do that with me for a couple of minutes, set the intention, the thought in your mind on who you're sending this love to, and then just release energy. That's all there is to it. So let's do that together. If you'll just close your eyes. Many of you may not know that we have these powers in us. I've said recently, and it's affected some people, that we continue to waste our time praying to a God that doesn't exist, an external God, if you would. If you want to call it the God of the Bible, then it would be called Yahweh or Yehovah or Jehovah. It's all an external God. It is an archon, the demiurge. And yet we were programmed to pray to the evil being that keeps us encapsulated in humanity. And so as we get those opportunities, but I'll take you back to, and this is really going to be pivotal, because I really see that there's some major shifts that are fixing to happen, and some people are not going to get it no matter how much I try to explain it. And some people, it may take them a while, and that's wonderful if that's what it takes for you. If that is your path of evolution, then you are just evolving as you, the person, can evolve. It's okay. It doesn't make you less. It doesn't make you greater. It just makes you what you are. And so we also need to put those kind of concepts into our thinking. We're so programmed that you're either saved or you're going to hell, or that you're a saint or you're a sinner. And of course, it's very, very clear now that none of those things are true. They were simply tools given by the Archon to religion to keep us in bondage. And if you're struggling with that part of it, it's okay that you're struggling, but and you certainly will find billions of people to tell you otherwise. But I assure you, if you're looking for something more because you haven't seen the power manifest there, then the reason it hasn't is because it isn't there. And so I'll leave that then up to you to summarize what it is and where it is. But so we have this simple concept that we've been taught. I've shared with you the Kabbalion. I've shared with you the three initiates, as above, so below, as inside, so outside, that everything is on the pendulum. It's all the same. We're all one. We're all light. We're all the same. There's no difference. When you diss your friend, you diss yourself. When you sin against your friend, you sinned against yourself. When you sin against yourself, you sinned against your friend. And some people's brains just cut off a long time before you get to that, because they just continue doing what they've always done. They're so consumed inside of themselves that is reality, is who they are. And that's a really horrible place to be, but alas, if that's what you choose to be, then by all means be all of it that you want to be. But the reality of things are, in the metaphysical spiritual realm, seems to kind of, in the simplest forms, which is my desire, many of the people that came with me were dyed-in-the-wool long-term Christians, and the sheer fact that I'm sitting here burning sage in Palo Santo and talking about higher consciousness for somebody who was a 60-year Christian is absolutely amazing to begin with. Truly, the world is changing. And so there is a concept that I would like to share with you guys that I think will help some of you. Maybe you're struggling. I mean, I listen to the younger people of this world, and they have this concept about vibes, and you can put on a vibe like you put on clothes, and what kind of vibe did you put on today, kind of a deal. And while there may be a small amount of truth in that, the way that is being presented is actually a corrupt version of the truth. And so for some of you, that may be a shock. It may be a stick in the gut. I mean, I'm certainly not trying to be offensive to anyone, but if you can so easily change your vibes, then why are you not proving that by your behavior? If it's so easy for you to do, why aren't you doing it all the time? But you're not. I've watched people say words like, "Oh, I'm going to never do that again." Give them 2 weeks, and they're right back over there doing exactly what they were doing before. There wasn't any fortitude. So even if they set an intention, which is correct, even if they set an intention, even if they did call to monad, which they probably didn't because they don't know who monad is, then they still lost it, because what we don't seem to understand is that true contact and connectivity and alignment with Source, our higher conscious, is a state of completedness. It is a state of completedness, and we'll look at that a little more. It is what Yeshua taught, and it is profound, and it is powerful, and it is going to be what takes people to the next level, inevitably, whether they understand it or don't, is irrelevant. But, so we have this concept. I've shared with you about shadow work. Shadow work is one of the most useful psychological terms that is, but in the metaphysical realm, it's the same thing, but it plays out kind of under a little bit different guise. And so the concept here in the mystic teaching is that essentially there are 3 minds that exist in every human. Now hold with me here, because some of you haven't, if everything of of source is father, mother, which they corrupted in Christianity, is father, mother, and son. We find that with Barbello. Barbello, the first created thought of source, says, I am father, mother. Quite profound. Barbello is quite amazing, the creator. And so we have these then concepts. We have something that we have very little knowledge about, but that knowledge is being increased for those who are looking for the truth. Those that seek will find. All of those scriptures Yeshua spoke in the Bible are purely metaphysical, and when you begin to understand them from a metaphysical interpretation, the concept and the context and the power and the fluidity of them begin to change so that they begin to morph, if you would. And so what we're looking at here is that there is three minds that we typically encounter. Now understand, these are really just human words that are used to define I guess on one level, perspective. Okay? And so let's start with the basis of the minds. The basis of the minds would be what you might title your statistical mind. Okay? Everyone has it, but some people are ruled by it. And so the statistical mind is the person, and maybe you be. So if you can relate, if you see yourself in this, then by all means, don't do that in judgment, but do be honest enough with yourself. If something pings you in between the eyes, it's pinging you because the source, your higher self, is trying to tell you, listen. And that's really the worst. I watch people constantly who function in spiritual pride, and a truth comes and they get angry, which is a dead giveaway that the universe was talking to you, and yet they totally miss the point because of their mind. And so when I say mind, we found out in the Kabbalion a year ago that everything, source is mind and everything else is mind. How do we create our reality? We create it with our mind. If you have a statistical mind, if you're functioning at the basis level, well, here's typically some of the little indicators for a person who is functioning base mind. Base mind is going to be the one who is constantly recanting and recurring and restating and rewashing and re-going over. They never seem to be able to ever come to completeness about anything. So if you ask them, and I had people in my church when I was a counselor, I'd see this stuff. I had no clue what it was, but I saw it constantly. And so this person is the person that you ask them a question, ask a lady about her husband, and she spends the next 2 hours telling you how bad of a person he is. That's the statistical mind. They only can grab a hold of to the things that have happened, and it can manifest in a positive note, but it just seems like most people who are in this base system can only deal with the things that they in their mind deemed to be ill to them. That is to say, so if you ask them a question, they can't tell you about the good that happened, but they can almost always recant whole stories from 20 years ago of when their wife left them because they were a horrible human. So it is that part of the mind which stays hung in that has been. They keep track of it. They keep statistics of it. They can tell you how many times somebody's done them wrong. They can on and on and on. And this really base mind is really horrible, because as long as they stay, if you want to use the modern terminology, in that vibe, then they literally will continue to vibrate at that level constantly, because their mind will keep kicking them out of the loop that would allow them to grow. Are you with me? Somebody out there tonight is this person, and you already know you are. You knew you were before tonight, but I've just been really all day driven by the reality that this had to be shared tonight, For some specific reason, there are people that I've never met who are going to hear this, and it is going to propel them into a new level. So please understand, this isn't random. This life, this journey, where we find ourselves are not just happenstances. We like to think that that's so. We get our little spiritual on when we say that it might be a little bit different, but then that doesn't play out in our lives. And so we have to very easily try to learn that don't listen to what people say as much as you watch what people do. Well, if you watch them in judgment, you're going to see them doing the same things you are. But you don't know the inner turmoil that people are going to. I'm not speaking today to judge anybody. If you're that, you're that. Just accept it, embrace it, overcome it, and move on from it and quit being that. It's really that simple for us, and yet it has ruined life after life after life after life. I've known people, you could not see them for 5 years, and you go sit down and have a cup of coffee, and you visit with them, and you're right back to where you were 10 years ago. Maybe some of you have recognized that with people you know. Maybe you've been that person. And I don't say that there's not a piece of all three of these minds, maybe at some levels in everyone. But what I'm trying to get us to get a hold of tonight is to look at ourselves and find out what is dominant in me. What is dominant in me? Because whatever dominates controls. And so if your dominating facet is that you constantly are spending your time in your mind, spending your mental energies constantly rehashing over and over and over and over and over, then you are at a base level whether you're aware of it or not. What I want to encourage you is that if you take the steps necessary to get out of that, you can. If you begin to look in a different perspective at the world, you will be able to overcome and dominate these negative minds, with the exception of the last one, which is not negative in any way and is the point of everything anyways. So this statistical mind, you will encounter it. And so as we walk through a spiritual journey, it is also our responsibility, because please do understand, and if you've been deceived about this, then I would like to maybe offer some clarity for you, and then somebody else will say the same thing sometime, and hopefully eventually it will sink into you. But for most of our lives, we've been brainwashed into these mindsets, and you get in them, and then they become part of your personality, and then you find it very hard to get out in the event that you even ever began the process of even thinking about needing to get out. I know lots of people hung in the next thing that we're going to look at, which is ego mind, and most of the people that I know that are in ego mind are so egotistical, they don't even think that they're in there, and they have no desire to even get out. And as long as that's what you desire, is to stay an egotist, you will be an egotist until the day you die and come back in again. Understand, reincarnation is not going away because of what's happening. That may be a little shocking to some people. There are going to be people that come and stay low density and choose not to elevate, choose not to remember. And in the event that you do that, you don't have to do that, but in the event that you do that, you will go back in. You will be thrown, as I showed you in the Nag Hammadi text, you will be thrown back into the pit of reincarnation. It's not going to stop. We know that actually in the Bible in pieces of ways that we are told things, and yet because we didn't have any understanding of what's going on, we didn't realize that that's what we were being told, is about the recurring cycle of reincarnation because of your unpreparedness for what's coming after this. It's quite crazy that we're not taught how to live our lives while we're here, and we're not taught how to get to the place that we want to get to unless you're a very exceptionally blessed person who has been taken under someone's wings. People in the past, for 20 plus thousand years, people have been taking initiates, people who show signs of enlightenment, under their wings and teaching them. So it's kind of like the other cliche saying about those that know don't say, and those who don't know do say. It's exactly the same thing, in just in a little bit different context. So we have this mind that seems to constantly regurgitate and thrives on all of the past, and it's not just past, but there is a predominance of your overwhelming thing that goes on in your mind. And I know that there's some people that are sitting out there that are going to hear this, and you will take a chance and you will actually examine yourself. Well, all of this concept is all termed under the heading of shadow work. You will never enlighten as long as you have shadow. But what nobody knows is what the hell is shadow. And I've had people tell me that. Well, I hear you talking all the time about I need to do shadow work, but I don't have a clue about what shadow work is. Doesn't matter how many times I've explained it, it didn't get into them. And so they just keep making the same routine that they've been making. And so we have this shadow thing. We are in a blessed time, and we are going to see changes, maybe in a way that most people before us, the enlightened people, were enlightened not because of society, they were enlightened in spite of society. In other words, they were enlightened because of their will to find the truth. They were the Abrahams who were looking for the city whose builder and maker is God, if you would use that term. And certainly that term explains what is unexplainable about as good as anything, I guess, that does. Any name you choose to pick is applicable, whatever works for you. So we have this mind then that is on this program. It's subconscious programming is where you got your mind from. And I would suspect that if you are on a statistical mindset, a low base mindset, you received that low base mindset by the people that spoke the most into your life when you were young, and they were low base concept, and you're just duplicating what they did, which is exactly all that a programming does, is you just duplicate what it's been programmed to. And so you just keep running the program. Can it be broken? Yes. Can it be stopped? Yes. Emphatically, absolutely, unequivocally. But the only person that can do that is you. And so if you don't know that you need to, maybe you don't even know that you're this statistical person, but I'm reading your mail just like you handed it to me, and you in reality are constantly doing this over and over. And if you are, as I said, there's no reason to be shamed. It's not a shameful thing. It's more a revelation of awakening that, wow, I just awokened that the thing he's talking about I seem to constantly do, and now I, for the first time, see it. That's the beginning of awakening, friends. We go through many days, many situations through the course of our life where awakening comes. Usually, if we're functioning and our heart is right, the revelation is going to always be an awakening to something higher than whatever awakening we've had to this point. So it is a school, it is a process, it is a learning, and it took me this long to get here, and now a new piece has come that offers me another piece of awakening to a higher consciousness, and so the cycle just continues on. Some would call it evolution, and in reality it is spiritual evolution, and we all must evolve to progress. And so that kind of pretty much covers this person. If you're one of them, please, as I've said, just begin to recognize that in yourself. Recognize yourself when you're being that. And then embrace it. Don't try to deny that it's true. Well, that's not me. Don't try to do that. Just accept that it is. And the sooner that you do that, the sooner that will begin to crumble off of you. And it will try to come back. And it may even get on you again, if I can use that term. Don't be upset by that. Just go back and start all over again. If you overcame it once, you can overcome it again, and move on. Which is really the hardest place for a person of statistics, because they're so programmed in the cycle going round and round and round and round and round. And so you get to the next thing and it goes round and round and round. So how do you get that to stop? Well, it requires some will and effort on your part, but it's certainly doable. And so the next mind that we need to maybe think about in our day-to-day life, I don't know about y'all, but I think about all of these all the time. I think about them every day. I think about them when I have a behavior. I think about them when I encounter people and I'm watching them and their behavior. And so the next one, really the most predominant one, because the last one hasn't yet become dominant. It will in time, but it hasn't at this point in most cases. And so really the next mind is, I would say, next to the first mind, the second mind is probably the most powerful. And the second mind could be stated as this: it is the ego mind. You know the thing, it's I, me, mine. I, me, mine, I, me, mine. The world is viewed through I, me, mine. Everything is yours, you're everything, you don't need help, you can do everything by myself. It's totally separatory from anyone, because everybody should know that you don't need anybody, which is the biggest lie that the archons could ever feed into the human brain. Because as long as you continue to function in separateness from the higher collective consciousness, you are by yourself, but you're not strong by yourself, no matter how much you tell yourself you are. It's a lie. It's a paradigm that an egotist uses, very closely akin to narcissism. They're better than anyone, even if they're not. And so the ego mind is the one that really has the preponderance of minds on this earth right now. The mass majority of people are functioning in an ego mind. It's actually an ego mind, if you want to know the truth, to think that you can put on, somehow just happenstantly shift gears from one vibe to another vibe. If you could change your frequencies that easily, dear friend, there are people who spent years, yogis who spent years in silent meditation to overcome ego. And all of a sudden you watch the guy on TV tell you that you're the one, and all of a sudden you're not an egotist. Actually, what it breeds is spiritual false pride. It makes you think you're spiritual, and you are fully convinced that that's true because I. And so if that sounds like a condemnation, it's not really a condemnation, but this state of mind is going to do more for destroying people than any other state of mind there is. It is the state of mind where mindlessness reaches supposed mindfulness. So you still function mindlessly, but you tell everyone how mindful you are. Not a good place to be. And so it is the destroyer of lives. It is the destroyer of light. It will destroy your light. Because as long as you, the ego, are in charge of you, the light being, you, the ego, will never relinquish authority to you, the light bearer. Never. If there is anything I could tell someone that would help them, this segment is probably the most potent teaching that you will hear, and even if you don't like it, it to me is irrelevant, because it is truth. Okay? You, the ego, will never allow you to ever believe anything that is contrary to you, the ego. It's horrible. I watch this almost daily. Almost daily. And yet, one of the traits that I see is that they are totally in oblivion to that reality. Why is it important? Because there's someone out there who is, but they are also at a place in their heart and mind where they are moving into the realm of humility, which must happen. Just so that you know, you can never ascend without humility, and you can never have humility and ego. They are counter to each other. They are vile enemies of each other. Humility will get ran out of the temple by ego every single time. That's why people who are narcissists, the declaration of a psychologist says this person will never get out of this mental disease. Why? Because of ego. We live in the most narcissistic society that exists. Every narcissist is cut off and separated from the light. You say, well, that's a really hard statement. I thought that there weren't any people. No, you dear one, you fail to understand. The monad did not cut them off. They cut themselves off. See, when you begin to understand that you are creating every second of every day, whether you have knowledge about what you're creating or whether you don't, it is irrelevant. You don't have to know what you're creating to be creating the life in which you hate. You just have to exist out of knowledge. And so people do that, and they sing the praises of their spiritual fortitude, when in reality it's just self making itself God. Because if you tell them the truth of what higher light is, then you will immediately find a reaction. I've seen everything from sadness and depression to anger over this subject that I'm talking about right now. I've seen people get up and walk away mad because I spoke about egotism. And of course, you do understand, if you're not that person, you watch them and you immediately know that they're an egotist. They're ignorant, they're deaf, dumb, and blind. They don't know any different. Probably on a spiritual pride kick that somehow they're better than everybody else. I watch it all the time, man. It's crazy. And once you see it, you cannot go back and unsee it. It'll never leave you. You will always see it. But it's always functioning. It doesn't ever rest. It doesn't ever get tired. It functions when they lay down in their bed, and the ego begins immediately to tell them how everything was. Are there signs for us to look for? Well, of course there are, but you have to look for them until you begin to see them. Not as much on other people as you do on yourself. Now, being good at something is not having an ego. It's how you present your good that brings in the ego. And so the most destructive force that exists by far today in our society, which is, whether you want to admit it or not, is driven by ego. Gavin Newsom is in Davos, Switzerland because of his ego. These people that stole the money from billions of dollars from the American people so that we can't give our own people medical care are functioning on ego. It is the largest driving force that exists. If you wanted to call something the devil, the closest thing to the devil that you could find that exists in humans is the ego. It is a very evil, unruly spirit force that lives inside of you, and you have made yourself its slave. As long as ego gets petted, everything's okay. As long as somebody tells you how good you are, everything's okay. But what happens when people don't tell you how good you are? Well, then we have to ask a question. If ego is this destructive force, and it is, psychology will tell you the same thing. I haven't said anything that most good psychologists wouldn't tell you that I'm just teaching psychology from a spiritual level. So ego drives us. Is there any positive aspects to ego? There can be in controlled situations. You can learn to control your ego and must learn to control your ego because it is such a dominating force. As long as it dominates you, then you're trapped. You're in the archon's trap. Just so that you know, ego is derived and taught to us through society to control you. If I told, let me show you a real, it's so crazy how all of this is working out, okay? Look at this. We live in a society that knows that it's an ego-based society, and yet everybody still glorifies pride, okay? Which is ego. Pride is ego, and tied directly to it. And according to ancient texts, it destroys you. If you're destroyed because of yourself. So here's a piece. If that wasn't so, why does our society not glorify light on every level? Why does our society not glorify kindness and love and mercy and forgiveness and understanding and patience and long suffering? And I could go on and quote every long verse that's in the Bible that contains those things. Those things are the antithesis of ego. So as you journey through your life, I don't believe that we should live our lives constantly judging in negative judgment. We should always judge ourselves, but I'm talking about in judgment, judging ourselves to be horrible, disgraceful, shameful, yada, yada, yada. There's a million things that people view themselves at from judgment. Instead of judging ourselves as being a human that is trying our best to take control of something that we could never handle, even if we possessed it. And so, if a person desires to the most part, if you recognize that maybe you have a little of the first and maybe you have a lot of the second, and you're going to have the third, but for a totally different way and a totally different manifestation, because the truth is you're already one playing the game of two. And so here's then the next piece. The third mind, the first mind, but the third in the series that in the direction that I'm moving through them, then is consciousness. And I would like to ask all of you a single question, a very simple question, and you answer it for yourself. If you have internal strength, send me your message not in a text, send it in a mental thought form, and I'll see what comes through. But here's a reality for you. What if I told you that even if you are dominated, even to the point of being a narcissist, what if I told you that you were full consciousness already? Well, what I am so excited about, what I'm so anticipating, because we will see it manifest. What I'm so excited about, as we have been so inundated by the ego and the statistical mind, and there has been nothing given to us about what is most important, which is coming to the place of remembering that you are something. And if you don't know yet what I'm talking about, it's okay. If you'll continue on the journey, inevitably you will come to the same place. Just because you're not there now doesn't mean you're somehow a failure. It doesn't mean God forgot about you. See, we have a mental problem that comes out of Christianity and the Christianity teachings, and that is that everything that happens to us on a punishment blessing scale, because God chose to bless us because we did good, or God chose to hurt us because we did bad. And the reality is there's a total different rule book that exists, okay? And that rule book says this. The rule book says that you are higher consciousness, but you must explore what that means. You are higher consciousness, but you must explore it. It's not something, this is so crazy to all of the stuff that people are trying to sell people about enlightening and awakening. Awakening is a reality. It's bits of revelation little by little that you get, the flash bulbs that you get where the light comes on. That would be awakening, and everyone is doing that always. It never ceases. Okay? Maybe the awakening today is that I'm a statistical person, and I see that I constantly recycle the thing, and I recognize that would be an awakening. They're just simply thought forms that you have is the basis for all awakening. There's a lot of people out there teaching people that somehow you're going to wake up one morning and the super God is going to flip the light switch on you and you're going to know everything that exists in the universe. And I'm sorry, friends, that's never happened to anyone. There have been some that have come in with the knowledge of what they were. Those are light workers that are coming even now to our place, to our realm. Some are in your presence and some will be in your presence, and you may have no knowledge of what they are, but they're here to tell you that there is something. It doesn't take away from the reality that there are other things that you must learn to navigate and be cautious of, like ego. Okay, so what then am I trying to get across to you? What I am trying to get across to you is if you're waiting for enlightenment, you already are enlightenment. You already are. The hardest thing for people that don't think much probably have a harder time with this, because some people seem to have a bent to not think very much. They like mindless. They like, I no outward, no nothing. And that's not what Yeshua told us. Yeshua told us that we can only be light if we're willing to go into the darkness. Everybody who runs from the darkness is not light. They are darkness. That's a very profound, but it's a very true statement. If the best you can offer humanity is to run when you're needed the most, you're useless. May sound a little harsh. The fix for that is don't run. But some people can't seem to find it inside of theirself. You will find that people that are in that state are often mixed with a lot of ego. So those two kind of are intermingled a little bit. So with the reality of this then, that we are enlightenment, what does that mean? What does it mean that I say or that I tell someone that you are already full enlightenment? You already are everything that you always can be, always could be, that you've already been, and that you always will be for eternity, that you already are that. And most people will look at you with a blank stare because they have no concept of what they are. See, the journey of awakening for us is to continue on the journey of awakening so that we awaken to who we truly are. Now we're talking something completely different. Because until you awaken to what you are, you have no idea about it anyways. Doesn't matter how many preachers, doesn't matter how many gurus, doesn't matter how many mystics, doesn't matter how many mediums, doesn't matter. They can call every prophecy from the Akashic record that's a lie to come and tell you how wonderful and amazing you are, and it means nothing until you explore that for yourself. This is an experiential journey. I am not held captive by your failings. If you fail, you fail. If I fail, I fail. My failings does not cause you to fail, and your failings can't cause me to fail if I'm focused on finding who I am. And so when I said words to you, they were actual direct revelations to me when I said to everyone a year ago or whatever it was that I am peace and I am love and I am light. And you say, well, you're not the peace, what I call peace. I'm not trying to live to your standards, dear one. I could care less what you think peace is, to be honest with you. I could care less what your opinion about what love is, because it's wrong. And probably mine is wrong, and probably the next person's is wrong. That's part of the journey, because once you find it, you will be just like every other light worker that has ever existed. There will be no difference. So what you're looking for is yourself in a sea of the same, if you can dig that. They use a metaphor a lot, and it's very appropriate, that we are each, our divine spark puts us in a picture of being raindrops in an ocean. A raindrop is totally in the ocean. When it falls to the ocean, it is part of the ocean. You can't separate it from the ocean. Once that raindrop hits water, it becomes mixed with water, and there is absolutely no way for you to separate the raindrop from the raindrop from the raindrop from the raindrop. And dear friends, that metaphor is who we are. And it's only when we begin to be able to allow that to become reality in us that really has its most potency. Okay? So, you are that you are. But what about if you don't know what that is? What if you are somebody who's constantly mindless, constantly being ruled by your ego, constantly self-centered, constantly not worried about anybody but yourself? You very seldom do good for other people. You certainly aren't thinking about what good you can do for other people. And so you go along, and then what happens when you begin to see that maybe that isn't you? And so I would love for everyone who hears this that will to just simply ask yourself, what am I? I don't want the answer. I just know that the journey must involve that question, and as long as you don't know the answer to that question, you are being controlled by another mind. Because you will have the answer to the question. When you begin to see who you are, what if you have lived your whole life? I see this a lot in teens. I have grandchildren, and I watch them. I watch all the people that I've known over the course. I don't know how many, easily at least 10,000 counseling sessions over 15, 20 years. And I watch this stuff go on all the time with no knowledge of what was going on. If I had, I certainly would have ministered probably the same thing. It just would have come from different understanding. And so what does it mean, really? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to you that you're light? What does that mean? See, if you haven't even begun the journey, everybody's worried about doing all of these things to somehow make them woo-woo special, and yet they never do the simple things that actually are the things that will change you. That's why Yeshua's teachings don't fit with 99% of the modern spiritual teachings. They're teaching you stuff, it's all about manifestation, and if you brain it hard enough, eventually you can make God give you what you want. There's a lot, man, that's the mass majority of it right now. You can be a multi-billionaire if you'll simply choose to be a speaker that tells everybody how they can manifest by making their mind believe something. It's a form of brainwashing. It's not what the mystics taught, nor is it the truth. So you sit around on YouTube paying money to people so that they can tell you how to manifest what you already are. That's why it doesn't work. And so I watch these things on purpose. I go and I watch Christian teachings on purpose. I want to see what did I see? If I've seen truth will be there, and it will prove itself over and over again. That's also another reason why people that run from the truth never find the truth, because they're always in the state of running from it. When it hits them in the face, and they can't deal with it. So then what does it mean? If you are full consciousness, and you are, even if you don't believe it, what does it mean What does that mean? How does full conscious in a human manifest? Because it's not something that you work up. This full consciousness coming from higher consciousness works out in the way you live, friends. You want to change the world, you change the world by the way you live. Not by how many conferences you go to or how many channelers you listen to. Did you know that I never read, and I've read every document that I can find, and many of them a whole lot of times as a Christian pastor. Did you know I've never one time ever heard or seen anywhere in any text about anybody needing a channeler? Did you know there weren't whole societies? Now, I think it's kind of strange that these people in every way were superior to us, and yet they had no need for everything you're being told is important in our society. So now let me show you how the archons work again, because some of you don't even still get the archons. You're scared to death of them. And the knowledge is the greatest knowledge you can possess, because they are going to be the people that keep you here and keep bringing you back here. You stay stupid if you want to, but I ain't got no interest to. Okay? I want to know everything I can know about how to deal with them and how to conquer them. And it's obvious Yeshua felt like that was quite important for us to know. But he never said a word about channeling. He never said a word about manifesting. He taught us how to receive what we want. And he did that in about 3 lines in 3.5 years. Maybe it's not quite as important as what you... Maybe they are trying to do the same archonic thing, which is to bring you to something external. See, manifestation from high consciousness, it doesn't look remotely close to what you can make yourself, or feel like you can make yourself manifest through belief. There's no need for belief at some levels in higher consciousness, because you just are. How do you believe that you're not the person that you are? Until somebody brings you to a place of questioning it, you don't. You look at yourself in the mirror and you go, "Yep, that's me." You never question that. You didn't have to have no belief in that. It was a direct knowing that you had that face and that beard and that hair and that and that and that and that and that, and that's me. And that's where a lot of people right now, where we're living at, that's where they're hung up at. One of the greatest problems and struggles that I see that people are going through, even if they have no knowledge of it, is the reality that what they're doing is they're not accepting the fact that this is not you. And if you can't see that inside, you can't see it. And if you can see it inside, then you immediately know that this and all of these behaviors are not me. Now, it was earth-shattering when I told people that there was no sin. Neither did Yeshua teach that there was sin. Anything along that concept in the Bible was created by Christianity. Okay? It's not real. Sin is what you do to yourself. Okay? So if you got that, then you've got a piece of revelation that you probably didn't have before, whenever it was that you received it. And so the ego concept is a revelation. And when you begin to get it, that I'm functioning in revelation, friend, that's the beginning of the end for ego, if you will continue on. Now, you can't just say, I know that I'm an egotist, and that's good. That didn't fix a thing. But it is the start for those people who will then continue on, because inevitably they will overcome their ego. And they will come out, when it's all said and done, they will be very kind, loving, quiet, humble people. But you can't be humble and an egotist. You might be a quiet egotist, but quiet and humble are not necessarily the same thing. Just like lack of confrontation and peace are not the same thing. They look the same, they sound the same, but they're not the same. So, I've shown you about 3 minds tonight, and I want to give this final piece for you, and it's just kind of a picture, because it's such a poignant picture, and maybe you can take that picture and it'll hit you somewhere in your inner person, And maybe it'll bring revelation to you somewhere down the road. But essentially, here is the picture that I would like to paint for you guys. Okay? Every one of us is higher consciousness. Now, do I say that there are humanoid type people that have no consciousness in them? Yes. Okay? I'm talking outside of those people. They're a totally different thing. If they have no soul, they're not the same as me, because I have a soul. That makes them different. So I'm not talking about the soulless people that have been talked about by every great mystic that ever lived. Okay? They're real. They're here. You're friends with them. Maybe you are one. I don't know the answer to those questions, and as yet, I haven't received that sight to pick them up by looking at them, but I will in time. And so, here would be the picture for you. If you could take out of your mind the human person that you've created and your society has created and that you believe is really you, which is just a lie, and if you could see yourself as total light, what would that mean to you? I mean, I know that it has to be in an internal direct revelation. That is to say, not a head thought, because there will be people that will hear my words and can take them and have a head thought and say the same words I said. That's not what's important. It's not important that you can say it. It's important that you are it. So, if all of us are consciousness, if I could grab my whatever they call it, TZZ or whatever zipper Wrangler uses on their blue jeans that never breaks, and if you could take that thing and if you could zip yourself down and put these clothes off, and I could just stand here exposed in my aura, in my true light form, then that's who we all are. You are too. Whether you know it or not, whether you believe it or not, is irrelevant of everything. Now, the stage that ties with this that is so important, and why I wanted to make sure that the ego thing, because here is basically the picture of what's going on in the world right now. As long as you're functioning in the clothes of human, you are this thing, but you have no knowledge of it. You don't know who it is. You don't know who you are. You have no clue. The Bible even tells us that when you come to this revelation, you will then know as you are known. So see, it is kind of true that minus the humans, which are not important, but the spirit forces already know you, not as this person, they already know you as the spirit that you are. That's why the Bible says you will be known as you are known. You will also know yourself as you are known by the other extant spirit forces. And so I can say it, and it would then have to be revelation for you, but it's true nonetheless. All of us that are light people are full consciousness already. It is a misnomer that you somehow must become enlightened. You don't have to become enlightened. What you must do is work at removing that which is not you and is not enlightenment. So you could paint the picture if you put a block of light, okay, anywhere where it can be, you can see it on a pedestal, and that would be you. And over the course of your life, and possibly even further back, I don't know how all that will play itself out. There are many different things that are coming about karma and reincarnation and past lives and all of that. Even the people, Dolores Cannon, eventually towards the end said past life regression is a waste of time. It tells you what you have been, but it doesn't help you at all know who you are. What an amazing statement to come from her. See, my spirit and hers are not far apart. My spirit and Helena Blavatsky are not far apart. My spirit and Edgar Casey are not far apart. In fact, we are connected. Okay? So, we have this this block of light sitting on the kitchen table. Now, everyone who walks in the room can see that block of light when that block of light is clean, sitting there exposed. It is doing what we were created to do. It sheds its light all around. Okay? And so as time goes on and as we live and as we get programmed, you could call that programming and living, you could call it mud. Okay? Your carnal life is nothing but dirt and water. And so as you live, you feel that dirt and water. Maybe your parents started it. Maybe you were a gifted child. Maybe you had psychic intuitions and your parents told you had lost your mind and were going to take you to a psychiatrist. Yada, yada, yada. There's a million ways that this happens and children begin to get programmed. But you begin to get the mud put on you from the time that you're at your earliest stage. And by the time you're 2 years old, your light block, in most cases, unless you have exceptional spiritual parents, by the time you're 2 years old, your block is totally covered. There is no light to show. So stop and ponder that, if you can get that metaphor. It happens by the time we're 2 years old, we are already programmed to be a human, not programmed to be light. And so you're not light because you don't know light. And so as that then happens, then we reach a place in time where we are given an opportunity where maybe it comes through a knowing, maybe it comes from intuition. Oh, and also, by the way, when intuition speaks to you, intuition is God. Intuition is your higher self. Okay? There are spirit guides and stuff out there, but I'm here to tell you, my friend, that the truth of the matter is the best guide you can have is your higher self. Your higher self is pure consciousness. Why would it need a dead human to help it when it already possesses everything? I know I'm speaking way above a lot of people's heads, but what I just told you is so profound for those people who walk into what I've said tonight. I guarantee you in a very short time, your life is going to change. So we are this block of light. Now here's a question to ask yourself. Well, if I'm a block of light and my mom and dad and the government and my society and education and all the friends my parents allowed me to be around, if all of those people were the ones that stood around the kitchen table packing mud on top of me to hide my light, then how do I know that? And the answer is until it's time, you won't know it. That's why you continued to live your life and you had no knowledge of who you really were. But I promise you, whether you're smart, intelligent is irrelevant, because the truth of the matter is, dear friends, as long as you associate yourself with who you are as your human self, the person, the Mary Ann, the Dave, the Rob, as long as that's who you are, it's not really who you are, but as long as you hold that vestige of reality, that is who you will stay. That's why it's so funny to me, because I listen to people that refuse to let go of their human self while they dream, crave, and cry, even concoct stories about how they're enlightening. And the reality is it's nothing but your ego telling you that you're not a failure. It's not real. It's just telling you what you want to hear. Because when you become enlightened, friend, nobody needs to tell you anything about it. You don't need to know a thing. You already know inside of you that it is happening. And it is changing. And it is a process. And it does have progress, and it has setbacks, and it has all of those things. So then the reality for each and every one of us is not that we need to enlighten. Well, I hope you'll hear me, because there's a lot of people that are teaching contrary to this. But you don't need to enlighten. What you need to do is get rid of all of that's covering you. And every psychologist that has ever been worth 2 pennies in the last 5,000 years has told you how to get rid of it. But you won't listen. How do you get rid of it? You get rid of it by clearing you out. As long as there is room for Rob, in me, there is no room for my light to come out. And so you say, well, now you're posing a concept of actually an internal war, and I could have never said it any better myself, dear friends. I could have never said it better myself than that statement. That's why Paul says we don't wrestle against flesh and blood. We wrestle against spiritual wickedness in high places. Well, the high places isn't in the heavenlies, dear one. That's what you were told to believe. The high places is your mind. See, this is another little branch, but what you have to understand is everything that's written about the Bible is about the human psyche. All of those things, Adam and Eve are nothing but spiritual aspects of us. They're all just metaphors. There is some history in there that may or may not be correct. People argue that still. But the truth of the matter is you are already light. When Yeshua said, you are the light that lights this world, he did not put any requirement to that. You already are enlightened. You're just so covered over with the mud and the dirt of your ego that your light is totally blocked out and diminished. You don't think so? What happens when the moon crosses in between Earth and the sun? What happens when the moon gets in front of it? Even in midday, the sun will be blocked out. It's the perfect metaphor for us to look in the heavenlies and to see us. Me, the moon, and the sun. I'm supposed to be the sun, and there's something blocking me from this. And that's exactly the metaphor of our lives. So I would like to encourage you tonight. Maybe my words are too much for you. They're overwhelming for you. Maybe you can't get them. Maybe you totally get everything that I'm saying, and you're sitting at home being excited that someone finally told people the truth. But the reality of it is, dear one, there's nothing that you need to do to try to enlighten. All you need to do is expose the light that's already in you. You already are that. And until you get that as revelation, you'll never experience it. That's really kind of the negative side of it. You already are it, but there's something that has to go inside of you. I call it the warping of your mind. Because according to human speak, if you realize that you're no longer human, you go to somewhere. I've done this on purpose, and it's totally amazing to watch people's jaws hit the counter at a store. Look at a person in a store and look at them and tell them, "Did you know you're all light? That you are light? You are the light of the world." You won't. I haven't found one person yet that jaw did not hit the ground. Why? Because they've never had anybody tell them that the problem is not them. The problem is not the true you, friend. You're already those things. You're merciful, you're kind, you're loving, you're long-suffering, you're patient, you're giving, your heart is amazing, you have healing power in you, you know all of those things are already existing in you. But they're useless to you because they're not functioning, because they're covered with the blanket of your ego. And so my reason for saying this tonight is to give someone who hears it encouragement that we can overcome. And we must overcome and expose the light that we already are. Take it out of the place that it's been hidden, and we must put it on the lampstand so that the whole world can see. Wow, what a profound connotation. If I lost you, it's okay. If you're tired, it's okay. It's not going to change that I have put this into the universe for anyone who will feast on it. So I hope you guys will be blessed. I hope that something will spark inside of you, and maybe you will begin to inside yourself see. Maybe you for the first time will be able to forgive yourself for behaviors without condoning them. Okay? There's a misunderstanding that when you forgive yourself, that means you're just like, oh, well, I don't care, I'm over it, I forgave him, whatever. That's not it. That's not it. It's not about condoning it. It's not okay. If you stole something from somebody, you stole something. If you hurt somebody, you hurt them. And it's not okay. Ever. And your higher self will never be a party to that nonsense. So I listen to people talk about how enlightened they are and then watch how they hurt people. And I go, no, you're not. You're just an egotist playing the spiritual pride game again. So just so you know what I said to you tonight, if you'll be a good student, you will watch that happen, and it's like the wheel in the sky that Journey talked about, keeps on turning. I don't know where I'll be tomorrow, because you're not going to be in the same place if you're walking towards the light. And if you are cleaning that mud off of your light, you're not going to be the same tomorrow that you were today. You can be guaranteed of that. You can be confident of that. That no matter what you encounter, good, bad, lack, or prosperity, that you're still not going to be the same you were yesterday. And so shalom to each and every one of you on your journey of growth and self-exposure. That's become my concept. My mind relates to that. I used to think that somehow if I could just will hard enough, I would somehow turn on like a light bulb. And it really revolutionized things when I realized that I'm already turned on like a light bulb. I'm just so covered up with the weight that none of that light gets out. And so then it makes the journey a little easier. Why? Because if you choose to, if your will is to do right and to know who you truly are, then you will begin to clean the mud off of your light so that your light can shine. And the more your light shines, the more you will learn to know yourself and see the goodness and amazing blessedness that our source, through the monad and barbello, created us to be. Shalom to each and every one of you. Blessings, blessings, blessings. Namaste.